Leadership, potentially a shapeless concept. Government, perceived as overwhelmingly large. Put the two together, government leadership, and you could distill it down to big and cold. Interested instead in a space where government leadership might be personal and warm? Maybe that would look like a one-on-one conversation with those we choose to speak for us in our own neighborhoods. We see them walking their dogs, shopping in our grocery store, talking with neighbors in the coffee shop, cheering from the Little League sidelines, witnessing community tragedy, solving problems, and generating opportunities. Now let's get to know them and know what motivates them, what nourishes them, what inspires them. From Studio 67, I'm Ginger Delegal, and this is Pack and Chat, 670 seconds with Florida's local leaders. In Studio 67 with us this afternoon, we have Commissioner Lee Constantine from Seminole County. Commissioner Constantine is a former elected city official. He is also a former member of the Florida House of Representatives and a member of the Florida Senate. And he is now on the county commission in Seminole County and set to be president of this association in a short couple of years. Welcome to the studio, Commissioner Constantine.
Thanks, Ginger.
Very glad to have you in here today. So, as you know, this show is just about our members and other local leaders getting to know you. So let's just start this with, what is your Florida story? How did you get here?
In the late 50s, my mother packed up an old Ford station wagon with my sister and I, my cousin, because they were going to come and visit, and we drove down to Seminole County, Florida, Bear Lake Road. And I still say that because it's in my district today. And my mother pulled into the house that my father had originally bought without her. He came down early, to set the stage. They wanted to set up a new life. We came from Wilmington, Delaware. And my mother pulled into the driveway and looked over at me. I was in the front seat, the oldest, and she said, "Never send a man to buy a house alone," because it was a gray house with yellow shutters, and it was horrid. It was just the ugliest looking house you'd ever seen. And quickly we had a white house with black shutters, but also it was 1,100 square feet, no air conditioning, and we had two families living in there. So I didn't even get air conditioning until I was 13 years old. Didn't know what it was. We fought over my sister and I fought over the fan every summer, because whoever was the best that week did what the parents told you, got the fan, because they made us feel like this fan that you can buy at Kmart for $10 was the most expensive thing in the world. And they had an in-house or in-room air conditioner, but my sister and I had to fight over the fan. So whoever was the best that week got the fan. And I became a very good boy because of that, because I wanted that fan.
Was it a metal oscillating fan?
Oh, yes, that's exactly. But you could put it right in front of your face and you could actually sleep on the hot summer nights. And like I said, my family was starting a restaurant. My father had started, so he had brought his father down. So my room was me and my grandfather. And my grandfather would work at nights at the restaurant, so he would come in about 1 o'clock. I can't remember until I was 13 that I actually got a real night's sleep, because he would come into my room. He slept with me. We had separate bed, but he slept in my room, and he snored so bad. And so as a child, I would have to wake up and kind of tickle his feet to make him turn over so I could get back to sleep. So that was I had a great, don't make a mistake. I had a great childhood, but the good news is my family made me think that I had a great childhood, because we had nothing, but I loved it. I worked myself in the restaurant starting at 7.
What kind of restaurant?
Well, it was a general restaurant, but we turned it into Maryland Fried Chicken. My mother and father started Maryland Fried Chicken. In fact, I know you know my mother, so you can ask her those questions. She'll tell you a lot of stories. But at 7 years old, they started letting me make the coleslaw. Can you imagine a 7-year-old making coleslaw?
How fun for you.
It was great for me because I got to put my arms in there, but think about that. It wouldn't work today. And then by the time I was 13, I was the kitchen boy and cooking and cutting all the chicken. Still have scars on my hands. By the time I was 16, I was the manager of my own store and making a heck of a lot of money that my mother told me to put all away so that I could go to college and not have to worry about getting money from the family, which I did. And she I was able to go to college without, ever worrying about the family money.
Well, and it's amazing how many Florida stories start with a station wagon.
Yes.
And
from the north. From the north, yes.
And from the Northeast in particular. Mm-hmm. And then my first job at 14 was as a dishwasher.
Yes.
So I know what that's all like.
Oh, I had to do dishwashing. I had to cut chickens. I had to cook chicken. And still to this day, my favorite comfort food is fried chicken. I love fried chicken.
One.
Yep, it is.
So what's your favorite fried chicken these days?
Well, my family, the interesting thing is we had at one point over 250 stores. My father eventually, through some bad business deals, lost it all. But my individual cousins kept individual stores. So I have a cousin that owns one in Union Park, which is out in East Orange County. I have another cousin that owns one in Apopka. I have another cousin that owns one in Leesburg. And so whenever I get I have to have chicken, I will drive to Union Park to my cousin, who's also my godson, and I will go in the kitchen. I'll cook the chicken myself and bring it home, and usually bring a barrel. Remember barrels and buckets? I'll bring a barrel, so I'll have chicken for a whole week.
Sounds like maybe a FAC field trip is in our future for Commissioner Constantine to be cooking for some of his fellow leaders.
I can still cook a chicken pretty well.
So tell me, you've been an elected official at every level in the state of Florida. What made you run for county commission?
There's a lot of reasons, but mostly I never got over the fact that of all the positions I had, the most self-satisfying was local government. I started as a 25-year-old city commissioner, and it was something that you see the little old lady coming out of the Publix or the Winn-Dixie, and they want you to do something for them. That instant gratification meant a great deal to me. Now, I loved the fact, especially in the Senate, that I could change so much public policy, and that I had some landmark legislation. But I can remember the first day I came into the legislature in '92 in the House, and somebody brought me in, another legislator, and said, now, listen, these decisions are going to be so difficult, and there's so many of them, and this is going to be so much different than local government. And I said, you see these people up here in the that are watching us in the chambers. They're mostly lobbyists, and tomorrow they'll need me for something. So even if I vote against them today, tomorrow they'll still be up in my desk asking me if I can help them in something else. That's not the same with a constituent that walks out of a Walgreens or a Walmart or a Publix and says, I want you to fix that pothole in my backyard or in my street. And if you don't, I'll never vote for you again. That is pressure. And, I loved making the big decisions for the 20 million people of Florida, but it was so much, to me, self-satisfying to help the people that I know personally back home. So when I came home from the legislature after 18 years, for the first 2 years, from 2010 to 2012, I was not in office, and I was making, for the first time in my life, quite a bit of money, because I was really concentrating on my business. And all of a sudden, folks came to me and said that they had started a petition drive to put me on the county commission. And for a long time, I thought about it, and I said, no, I've had at the time, 32 years in office, and I said, I've done my time. But as I went along, and the momentum started, and they got more and more petitions signed, and they kept pressure on, I finally, again, called my mother, and I said, Mom, what do you think? I'm making a lot of money here, but they want me to run for office. And she said, Lee, you were born to be a public servant. You will never be happy unless that's something that you're doing, that you're making a difference. And so I signed up. And, I signed up the last day of qualifying. They had almost gotten all enough signatures. I signed up, and I think my opponent had been a 22-year incumbent, had $100,000 in the bank, and I had zero and zero. I put my own money up to qualify, and 2 months later in the primary, won by 10 points. So, that's where I'm at. This is now, I just got elected to my third term, and I love it. I love county government. It really is so wonderful to be part of the fabric of your community every day.
So on that note, you're an overachiever, and I mean that in a good sense, that you're a leader of your community, you're a leader in your family. There are literally tens of thousands of people who are depending on you to get up every day, to show up and to do the right thing. And this show is all about you all on the front lines of our communities here in Florida, literally face to face, not always pleasant exchanges. Sometimes they get ugly and nasty and even threatening in a personal safety standpoint. So what keeps you going, though? Are there things? Are there daily practices? Is there exercise? What helps you keep that balance with all of these things that you are achieving in so many different aspects of your life?
I sometimes ask me that question personally. I say, what are you doing this for? I wake up every day excited that there's the potential to make a difference. I was told one time that I was the luckiest son of a gun in the world, and I'm making that sound better. It was really son of a something else, but I was the luckiest person in the world. And I answered, why is that? And they said, because at a very early age you knew what you wanted to do, and you did it, and you wanted to serve. And I have. I have had the opportunity at the city, the state, and now the county level, and to serve the people that I love the most. One of the things about Florida, and I recognized this when I was in the legislature, very few people actually represent the people that they grew up with. It's hard. They know your flaws. They know everything that you've done wrong in your life, and I've done many. And God thank the people that I serve, because they're forgiveful. Maybe forgetful too, but they're forgiveful. But I'll remember I was at a public hearing, a community meeting in Bear Lake. We're going to go back to Bear Lake, and I was talking to the folks. They were asking me about some issues, and one old man, over 90, came up to me and he said, I remember you when you threw eggs at my house at Halloween. And I had to admit, I said, yes, sir, I probably did. And he said, that's okay. You turned out all right, and I vote for you every time. Do you know how incredibly wonderful that made me feel? That he knew me when I was 12 years old and threw eggs at his house because I didn't, for whatever, I was a kid, right? And he was proud of the fact that he knew me as a child and brought me up, or helped, as part of it, and knew me, and he's always voted for me in every race. And he said, and you've done good. You've done good, kid. And that's the way he said. And this is just last couple of years ago. So I have the real pleasure and honor of serving the people that I grew up with. I mean, I went to Lyman High School right there in Seminole County. I went to UCF, which is right on the border of Orange and Seminole County. And, I'm home. And I love the people that I serve. And, I can't tell you that they love me, but they keep electing me. So, I've never lost an election in 41 years.
Well, it sounds like your constituents and your community is very intricately interwoven into you, and you carry them everywhere you go. So one of the other things that we always talk about on this show is going back to the late Representative John Lewis and a march that he took across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And that day he had a backpack. And certainly Representative John Lewis is a leader among leaders in this country and frankly around the world, an international leader. But that day he had a backpack, and he had some things in that backpack that he felt were going to sustain him on the next part of his journey, knowing that he may be arrested once he got to the other side of the bridge. So stories like the one that you have just shared, but are there other things that, let's say you were with him that day and going across a bridge, or even in your own journey going across a bridge, if you were to take a backpack with you to the other side, what would you want to sustain you as a leader to keep going?
Ginger, a lot of people ask me, and you've seen it before, I always carry a college rule notebook. And in yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
And in that notebook, I have a list for every day of something I want to do. I have a list of the things that I have to do. I have a list of the finances. I have a list of writings. I write down my notes and my thoughts. And I've been doing that since I was 13 years old. For whatever now, one of my political friends, but heroes, is Bob Graham, former governor, former senator, and he and I has spent a lot of time, me a Republican, him a Democrat, going around fighting for conservation here in Florida. But he did that, and I did it before I even knew him, before he did that and everything. But he and I always used to have fun talking about what he put in his notebook, and he had a very small notebook, and I, like I said, I have a college rule notebook. But both of us admitted that we would be lost without it. And knock on wood, I've never lost one of them. I can still go back to July 28th, 1982 and tell you what I did on that day. But because I have all the notebooks put away. But if I didn't have a notebook with pens, I think I'd be lost. So because I write, my thoughts, my ideas, my finances, whatever. So that has to be the first thing that I would pack, or I'd be lost. I probably, because I'm not putting it in my backpack, I would carry the iPhone, in my pocket, but I would put a solar charger somewhere. I got to have a solar charger for everything. I need something sharp. For if you're going to do that, razor or knife, simply to make sure that I've, got a tool. And then I would, I could go on. A number of years ago, and continually, my mother, and I keep going back, but she is my hero. But she gave me a book of thoughts that she wrote in her life, and so I always refer back to them, and quite often, and so I would bring that. I think I'd have to have a toothpaste and a toothbrush. Cannot stand not having that fresh feeling. That's one of the reasons why you got to bring a razor too. And because most of my political life, many people associate me with the environment and water, which I'm very proud of. I'm very proud that is part of my, I hope, legacy. I would always have a water bottle, not a plastic water bottle, but a water bottle and purifier, because got to have that. And the last thing I think that I would have to have is I'd have to have a bathing suit. I'm a beach bum. I'm a beach boy. I've got a sand volleyball court in my backyard. I have a full-size beach. I live on a lake, even though I live in the interior of the state. I surfed when I was younger. I played beach volleyball, around the country when I was a little bit older, and and I swam in high school. Swam. For the team, I have to have a bathing suit.
Well, it sounds like we could drop you out of a helicopter somewhere and you would survive just fine.
Just for those things, yeah. If I had those things, I think I could.
All right. Well, Commissioner Constantine, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and joining me here in Studio 67. Until next time.
Thank you, Ginger.